Welcome back. I'm Shawn Doyle, and this is Presentation Power, how to present with power, authority, and credibility. The number one topic people often talk about when it comes to public speaking and giving presentations is fear. It reminds me of that famous speech that Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave years ago where he said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." I think it really relates to this particular module because people get very anxious about having to give presentations. In fact, according to the research, 200 million people suffer from anxiety around giving presentations. That's 200 million people in the world. So if you have this, you're not alone. A lot of people have the fear. So here's the question. How do we overcome the fear of public speaking? First of all, we need to address the fear. We need to address the fear because the fear needs to be addressed in order for us to acknowledge it. So address the fear. How do we do that? We need to say, okay, I'm aware. I'm getting ready to give a presentation. I'm aware that I'm nervous. I'm aware that I have anxiety. And if we say, okay, I'm aware of it, that's okay. Take a big deep breath, right? Then what happens is that fear actually goes down when we acknowledge or address it. The second question that often comes up is this: why do we have this fear? Because a lot of people, when they're asked to give a presentation, right, their face looks something like this, like, and they're very freaked out. Why? Why? It doesn't make any sense. So here's the reason why I think people fear. History. What do I mean by that? Well, maybe in elementary school or middle school or high school or college, you're asked by someone to get up and give a presentation and you totally bombed. Like, oh, I never want to do that again. That was humiliating and embarrassing. I never want to have that happen to me again. I never want to do that. So that's creating that fear. Secondly, maybe you've seen someone else get up in front of the room and do a terrible job and you feel bad for them and they're embarrassed and they forget their words and it's terrible to watch. Like watching a car wreck, right? And you say, I don't want that to ever happen to me. So that's something that really creates that fear of public speaking, and it's pretty interesting. So we need to make sure that we address that, right? So we need to answer that why. And the next thing to think about is, why should we not fear? Why should we not fear? Well, I think it's pretty important to think about this. What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, would you be fired? Let's say you do a presentation at work. Would you be fired from your job for one bad presentation? Probably not. If you give a presentation at a community event and you bomb, maybe you're a little embarrassed, but what's the worst thing that could happen? I always say nobody ever died giving a presentation. I've never seen anybody on stage get up and go, oh, and just die right there. It never killed anybody as far as I know. So when we think about it, what's the worst thing that could happen? Embarrassment, maybe. Humiliation, maybe. But that's okay, right? So if we can kind of minimize the impact of that and take the pressure off of ourselves, it can really make a big difference. So what do we do about it? First of all, I want you to change the language. I want you to change the language. You know, I teach presentation skills across the world and always say to people, you need to change the language. And they go, well, what does that mean? Like, well, what you're telling yourself is making you more nervous. They go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you say to yourself, oh, I hate speaking. Oh, I get really nervous when I speak. Oh, I hate being in front of a group. Oh, I'm a nervous wreck. What are you telling your brain? So what I say is change the language. Say to yourself, I'm excited about giving a presentation. I'm looking forward to giving a presentation. I had somebody say a couple weeks ago, but I'm not. Like, but I want you to say it because your brain believes what you tell it. Eventually, by changing the language, you change the reaction. Changing the reaction, you change the behavior. And guess what? The nervousness will go down. Also, use it for energy. Use it for energy, right? Energy. Energy is so important for a speaker. You know, when we see people that are flat and boring because they don't have any energy. One of the best quotes I've ever seen is, if you have butterflies, get them to fly in formation. So use it for energy. Also, prepare. We talked about preparation lots in these different modules. And so by preparing, you're going to greatly increase your confidence level and your competence level. Then the other thing I highly recommend is actually practice twice. Practice 2 times. In the space where you'll be presenting. Out loud. Not the paper, because you don't go when you present. Read it out loud in the space. That would give you a lot more confidence, because then when you present, it's not the first time you presented it, not the second time, but the third time. In our next module, make sure to come back. We're going to talk about platform skills, how to make your presentation very dynamic through using all those platform skills. See you back here.